here we are near Totnes on a beautiful day to speak to Dan and Ronja about their Crock Cole operation, providing beautiful fermented products for the real food store.
It's been a long time, I suppose, that I'd wanted to have a little business making ferments, and I just hadn't done it. I've been a market gardener, so growing veggies, as Ronja knows, sort of making kraut as well, and kind of a lot of experimenting, but just for friends and that sort of community where I was living. 10 years ago, I suppose, I went to California, and in the way that Americans sometimes are, it felt like they were a little bit ahead of like where, in this particular respect, they were a little bit further along the line.
Yeah.
And I met a young couple over there who had a little fermenting business on the West Coast, and it really struck a chord with me. And ferments, these sort of live ferments were becoming very popular over there 10 years ago, in the way that I imagine they probably would here, and they kind of have really, just all the chat around gut health and all sorts of things. So I suppose that helped put a little idea in my head, and then it was just something that it took me quite a long time to actually do, but kind of eventually got around to it.
And you enjoy it?
Yeah, I love it really. I was kind of I was trying to think earlier today, like what is it? And I think it's lots of things. I love the kind of sensory nature of the process. The sort of, you have to get your hands right in there and scrunching when you're making it, and the colours are changing, particularly with the red cabbage actually. You get this amazing kind of colour transformation. And then it's a kind of, there's that sort of alchemy and transformative process that's there with all fermented foods, really. Baking, sourdough in particular, and wine making and cheese making, and kind of all of those things I'm really quite fascinated by. And this is just one of them really, and it grabbed me. And since I was growing vegetables, I'm sort of often quite happy, feel sort of in a natural state with one foot in the garden and one in the kitchen.
Definitely.
Yeah, it works.
And what's the process then from growing your vegetables? Talk us through the process from that to get to the jar of finished product on the shelf.
So it's so we grow as many of the cabbages as we can ourselves, but we also work with a lot of other local producers, Shillingford Organics and Huxham's Cross and Teen Greens on the hill, and kind of using, because the other part of the business is really trying to use what might otherwise be waste products from other local organic farmers.
Right.
So that's really great, because at the moment it's more cabbages than I can produce myself anyway, so really like working with those other producers. Yeah, so sort of once a week getting all either our own stuff or from those guys, getting the veg together and coming here, and then we've kind of got a range of different varieties that we make, so we kind of rotate on a monthly basis, and just get everything into the kitchen, washed, chopped, adding salt, whatever, following whatever the particular sort of recipe. Yeah, so we get it all made, and then it goes into these ceramic crocks. So we just ferment in ceramic, so these are German ceramic crocks. So it goes into there and it ferments for a month basically in these. And then we do what we're doing now, which is just jar it up. Jar it up and put a label on. Wow,
it's ready to go then. Fantastic.
Yeah, I do really enjoy, and it happens quite a lot, is I kind of meet people who say they don't like sauerkraut, and they'll end up trying some, and they actually quite like it, and there's this kind of idea of what it is. They might never have tried it, they might not have eaten it since they were a kid in school, and sort of had a real bad experience, and it really interestingly, a lot of really young kids love it, and they love they love the sourness and maybe a little bit of the saltiness, but really young kids, which I always think is quite interesting. But it does, much more widely seems to be getting very popular as we maybe recoil from our kind of bacteria-phobic state. We're kind of learning again that we need to live, with bacteria, and this is kind of this is very much down that street, kind of in terms of educating ourselves and becoming aware of our gut health. But I think the flavours are becoming popular again. I guess it takes a little while, but they are quite, all the flavours of fermentation are quite distinctive.
So what is the process then with the bacteria in the fermentation process? In a nutshell, what's kind of going on there?
You're going to get me. So basically we create the environment. We're not adding any starter culture, not adding any bacteria to the mix. All the bacteria they're there already on the vegetables. They're there in the air. So we just create the conditions, which basically is an ever so slightly salty and anaerobic environment. And then within that environment, the right bacteria that we want, thrive. And you get a succession of bacteria that each in turn kind of like the first type of bacteria that come to really populate the sauerkraut. They'll acidify the environment slightly and create conditions where another species of bacteria will actually thrive. And it ends up tending towards the lactic bacteria, so various members of the Lactobacillus family, and so by the time they're there, the acidity of the environment drops quite a lot. So it's often like pH 4, and it's a very safe conditions really, where not much else can, certainly nothing dangerous can really thrive or live.
Like traditionally, you make this in the end of the summer and then have it for the winter. Like, I don't think that's mentioned. And in this time, like, people don't really need that because there is vegetables available all year round. They don't think about storing stuff or jarring stuff up for the winter when they have tomatoes coming out of the supermarket anyway. So it's just, I think it's just an interesting thing.
I think it's a tricky thing to negotiate. For me, for this business, I feel it's really important to me that it's rooted in produce that I grow and produce, that's either produce from other local farms, particularly their surpluses and their what would otherwise be waste. Not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just a little bit of damage. So that brings like a real natural constraint to how big it can be. And then also, I suppose I've always had the feeling that I only really want to sell this product kind of to the local communities around here. Like, it doesn't feel so meaningful selling at the other end of the country. Like, there's other people who can do that, and that would be more meaningful to them. And so I'd love to see, lots, I much prefer the vision of lots of small businesses serving their local communities to trying to supply the whole country, for example.
When you've taken over the world kimchi market, we'll play that back to you.
Yeah.
Remind you.
Please do.